2023 has brought some big changes to World Cup mountain bike racing, including some big ones like adding semi-finals to World Cup downhill, but there's also some more obscure rules buried deep inside the UCI regulations.
But don't worry, we have read the whole rule book, so you don't have to. So let's take a look at some of the obscure rules, some of the unwritten ones, and some weird facts.
Let's start with one of the more well-known rules, is the skin suits are banned in downhill racing. So I was there when it was kind of an unwritten rule. All the World Cup downhillers came together and said, yes, we want to sort of make image more important for downhill.
The baggy days.
Yeah, get rid of the skin suits. And then it became a written rule. So jersey shall be a long sleeve shirt whose sleeves extend down, but they're specifically designed for use in BMX racing or mountain bike downhill events. So you're not allowed skin suits or one-piece suits comprising the jersey and the pants in downhill events. So it was an unwritten rule that became a written rule, although that only came after Tracy Mosey, if you remember.
Yes, she came in and she broke the unwritten rule and wore a skin suit. Where'd she end up?
She won the race. So the UCI got involved, and they're talking as well, long pants are again designed for BMX or downhill. They've got to be one piece, so you can't wear, you know, like the zip-off dad trousers, not allowed. Got to be tear-resistant material. But interestingly, with shorts as well, they can be worn together with suitable leg protection. Now this one gets broken, I reckon, that covers the entire knee and entire shin until just above the ankle. You don't see that, although most downhill racers ride in trousers now. You often see them shorts with just knee pads with a big open shin.
I think you're seeing it less and less though. There's more and more, because there's more and more brands making really great full-length trouser products.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's much more common. It's getting so tight. It's nearly skin suit.
It is nearly. I kind of like it. I think the image is right now. Not that the image is everything, but I think downhill looks cool. I mean,
it does look good. It does look good.
Similar to that, a full-face helmet must be worn properly, both when racing and when training on downhill. The helmet must be fitted with a peak.
I love that. It must be fitted with a peak. I do wonder why that is a rule.
It looks cool.
And I like that the helmet has to be worn properly.
Yes, well,
that's important.
I've seen crashes, mainly on BMX tracks, where if they don't do the chin thing up, the helmet comes flying off full face, so you got to strap it up.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, bad news. So, skin suits not allowed in downhill, Lycra be gone, but also if we're comparing ourselves to our roadie friends, well, they've had a few, should we say, drug cheats over the years. Mountain biking, less so. However, there is a story that Gary Hausman...
Oh, this is a sad story, Neil.
23-year-old Californian was having a good 2003 World Cup downhill, hovering just outside the top 10 in World Cups. But then at Grouse Mountain, he qualified a bit downfield in 33rd, meaning he did his run earlier in the day when it was raining a little bit, but then the massive rain came down. So it was good enough for him to take the win. However, later he tested positive for THC.
But Neil, that wouldn't have helped him win a World Cup.
Marijuana. So, I mean, you can debate down in the comments about the
I probably should.
Performance enhancing matters, you know, maybe you don't debate down there, but you know what I mean. So he got that title World Cup race taken off him, and also a 2,000 Swiss franc fine, which he's never paid.
Sad fact.
Because he never raced ever again.
Never raced again.
Really sad. Eventually, the race went to Ivan Alego Moreno.
Although we all know he didn't really win it.
Wow.
No, our man did. But I think that's such a shame, and it's such a sad story. THC would not have got you down the hill any faster.
There have been a handful of, what should we say, more villainous dopers in our past.
Should we skim over this bit a little
bit? Not many. 90, 2000s, when it was all going on in the road world, there were some cross-country names.
I happened to be at a World Championships in, I think it was 1997, where there was
not that old, Martyn.
I know, don't look at it. There was a team that were actually, one of the national teams, raided in their hotel and caught...
Smoking blunts?
No. If only. It was way worse, but let's move on quickly while we can.
Shall. Now, this one I think is really interesting. It's come about this year. The use of radio links or other remote means of communication with riders is forbidden, except at UCI World Cups and subject to UCI authorisation. So you are allowed to run radios if you pre-agreed it with the UCI. And here we have a spy shot of Alan Hatherley racing short track with an earpiece.
I mean, this is transformative, I think, especially in downhill, because if
I've not seen it there yet.
I mean,
yeah.
But if you were a team manager, wouldn't you be like, we got to get on this?
Back in the day, Nico videos would have spotters on course and they would shout things. So like, you're half second up, down, whatever. The one thing that makes me think this could have worked is Steve Peat, 2004 Leger World Champs. He was way up, and on the final corner he crashed quite famously. If he could have been told he was 4 seconds up, he would have probably won World Champs.
Yeah, I mean, it would be so. And I wonder, could the rider also communicate back to the team in some way? Even ask questions, because we've seen these riders go down on a GoPro run talking to the camera happily. There's plenty of moments in a downhill run where you could think about talking to someone else in your team.
I'm pretty sure road riders, you see them do this and they talk to that. So I think that is possible. I don't know.
I don't think we're going to see any of that on the downhill course, are we? Hello, mate. This is bumpy. I should hold on with 2 hands.
We're speculating, but let us know what you think, how good that could be. Is it interesting? Imagine if you could hear it like the race on Formula 1.
Formula 1 stuff. Oh, yeah.
Into bike rules. The use of tyres fitted with metal spikes or screws is sadly not permitted.
Not allowed. That's a good idea, though, isn't it?
True.
Yeah. We don't need anyone ripping out their gooch.
During mountain bike races, no traditional road bars can be used, so no drop bars. Clip-on extensions or inner bar ends, have you seen those where you kind of rest your hand?
Yes.
These are quite popular nowadays. Are not allowed, but traditional bar ends are, although no one uses them.
No one does. No one does, because it really dates your bike for a start. I mean, does anyone even make bar ends now? Yeah, I guess for more commuter bikes these days, isn't it?
I can't remember last time.
I think Ergon do some really sort of cool, like, grips that go into it.
True, they do.
Yeah, but they're more for, like, commuting and stuff.
UCI, actually, they overlook pump track racing as well. Did you know that? I guess I did, World Champs. But riders are not allowed to use clipless pedals. They have to use flats.
I didn't know that.
I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Cross-country racers have to ride short track and XC Olympic on the same bike, so they can't choose a hardtail for XCC and then a full suspension bike for XCO. However, I mean...
That's interesting.
That's kind of well known, but however, Cervelo get around this. You've seen their bike where they've basically got a kind of a really cool, weird-looking metal bar that goes in instead of a shock. So they've got the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Okay. So it is. You know, that's a wicked workaround.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen this.
It's sort of low tech.
I've seen it in like Hacks and Bodges where people send a piece of wood.
That's what it reminds me of. The sort of thing we've seen when people are just like, the shock's gone for service, still wanted to go out for a ride. Kind of
exactly. Yeah. Talking about XC racing, each feed technical assistance zone must be located on a flat or uphill section. Makes sense, slow enough. But what I thought was interesting is the only place where riders can get technical assistance from other people, so their team, except you can get help from a rider on the same trade team out on the course, or in the case of World Champs, someone on the same national team.
Right.
However, unlike road, they're not allowed to just swap bikes. So if Nino Schurter flats, he can't swap his bike with his teammate.
No.
You have to finish on the same bike. Also, water bottles and food must be passed the rider by hand by the feeder in the feed station. They're not allowed to run alongside. Makes sense because they're running someone. Yeah. And they're not allowed to spray water. So you often see the cross-country riders take one bottle, stick it in, and then they take a water bottle at the end and they dunk it over their heads.
I would like to ask how else they could pass it to them other than their hand.
Robot. Getting into bikes again, for downhill and enduro, you can run 2 wheel sizes of different diameter, so mixed wheel size bikes, but not for anything else. So not for cross country, which we haven't seen cross country bikes with mixed wheel size yet.
Why would that be, Neil? Was there a reason?
I have no idea. But that's quite new as well. Only a few years ago, they had to be the same wheel size. That has come around with, it's followed the fashion of people going, hang on, we want to run, mixed wheel size. Also, for downhill only, a bicycle may be driven by either a chain or a belt, but for nothing else. No belt-driven bikes in enduro, which I think there are some. Don't Deviate do a belt-driven enduro bike. So in theory, you couldn't race a belt-driven bike at enduro. Has that been broken?
Let us know. Has anyone spotted that? Here's a rule that I think's really fun, actually, and I'm glad it's changed.
Yep.
But I used to enjoy when someone would crash on downhill, if they exited the course in that crash, they had to climb back up to where they exited the track so that they didn't get an advantage and get back on. And there was a couple of famous times, Greg Minnaar, Rachel Atherton as well. I remember a moment where she had to climb back up and it was really difficult. And obviously those bikes, trying to drag those bikes back up a hill is not easy. These days, that rule has been changed.
Yeah, you would have been disqualified if you didn't do that. And so now it's if you don't gain an unfair advantage.
You can just get back in.
I fell foul of this once. I crashed into a post.
Unlike you.
And they said that I went, I thought I barreled into it and got back on. They said I went the other side of it when I crashed. I thought I went the right side and now disqualified. So,
they DQ'd you?
Disqualified, yeah.
Oh, nasty.
Unfortunate, yes. Anyway, talking about me, I like my favourite subject. Downhill racing is tight. I once got joint ninth with Kurt Vorez.
Good run.
Les Deux Alpes, and we scored exactly the same points. But in those days, they only recorded results down to the 100th of a second. Now it's to the 1000th. Even.
So yeah, unlikely going to happen these days.
Has it happened more recently? I've got a funny feeling it has, but I can't remember.
That's brilliant. Back in your day, the clocks were different.
Yeah, exactly. This is a big one. So the UCI has just introduced a new rule to limit transgender athletes. From now on, female transgender athletes who have transitions after male puberty will be prohibited from participating in women's events. For basically, there's an open category now. So anyone who doesn't meet those sort of rules, they go into this open, which is basically the men's male category.
Right.
Controversial or not?
It's controversial, and I don't know whether to open my mouth. I'm terrified. But I feel like that sounds about right. But there could be differing views out there.
We have seen transgender athletes.
Yeah, Kate Weatherly from New Zealand. I've spoke to her on the Dirt Shed show. She was telling me all about her story and how she got into the category that she's now in via doing it all by the book and getting her testosterone level low enough over a period of 4 years. It was actually incredibly difficult to do, and it was not an easy journey. But she's very outspoken about it. It's a very good thing to talk about, that we should be talking about if it's the right thing to do at the professional level, but maybe not so much at the amateur level.
Now I think this is quite confusing as well. So if you win the one-off race called the World Championships, that makes you the world champion.
Bingo.
Whereas if you win the overall series title with the most points after the 8 or however many rounds there are of the World Cup, that makes you the World Cup champion.
So, which is better? Which one do you think is better?
Actually, World Cup champion, but not really. I'd rather be the world champion because it's the big one.
Oh, that's a good answer. But that was a good answer. It's World Cup champion is the better rider, but you'd rather be world champion.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I actually think there's an awful lot to be said about winning world champs if you've done it multiple times. That says something special about that person. Loic Bruni is a special individual because he's made it happen on that one day many times.
Exactly.
So that's very special, but I agree. World Cup champion, that's the one to say you're the best.
Now, I can't think, I can only think of one unwritten rule nowadays, or, it's one that I had at least, I felt like it was within the paddock when I was racing, is that riders share 50% of their prize money with their mechanic. Ooh. Obviously, that was never, it might be in some people's contracts, it wasn't never in mine, it was just a gentleman's agreement between me and my mechanic and the rest of the team members and their mechanics. And I can't think of any others, but I'm sure there are. Like I said, in my day, there was the skin suit was the unwritten rule that people just followed. So I'm sure there are more of these. We've talked about these, or the GCN guys have, because in the Tour de France, there's loads of weird traditional rules that we don't get in mountain biking as such. And I really can't think of any others.
I've never shared my winnings as few times as that happened with any mechanic, so I've definitely broken that rule.
I did. It was quite a stinger when you've just won €100, and that means quite a lot to a 19-year-old.
€100?
And you have to give 50 of it away.
I'm not going to an event where I only get €100.
Other weird racing facts. I think this is quite a funny one. So G. Atherton has always been quite a laid-back racer, I would say.
Definitely.
But in 2004, where he actually took his first ever World Cup win at Schlambing, he was doing quite well in the overall, but he was so relaxed that he was chilling in his pits listening to his music until it was too late. By the time he got on the chairlift, got to the top, he qualified 6th. he came out of chairlift and saw the person who'd started in 5th leaving the start gate.
Oh no!
So he missed his finals run in the final World Cup of the year, and it cost him dearly. So he dropped from 6th in the overall to 7th.
That is crazy. I actually remember the same thing happening to. It was either Frank Roman or it was Miles Rockwell, but one of those guys in the World Championships in 1995 missed his run because the other rider, either Frank or Miles, had told him the wrong time.
Was THC involved in this story as well?
Possibly. I wouldn't like to say. Here's a good one. Now, national champions, you can notice them when they're out on the hill or out on the course because they've got one arm in their country's flag. So it's a really good way of spotting the rider. And that is a significant change because you used to get a national champion's jersey when you would win your national title.
You've had a few?
A few. I didn't get any jerseys though, but you'd win the national jersey. It would just be something you've got the national jersey. But some people thought that it was a disadvantage to your sponsors if you won the national jersey because basically all of that real estate was taken over by telling the world you're national champion, not sponsored by Trek, Cannondale, whoever. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So even riders would even actually miss national champs on purpose so that they, like someone like G. Atherton, for instance, who would not go to his national champions title race because he didn't want to win the jersey because it would mean it wasn't good for his sponsors.
At the time, I thought it was quite sad that people weren't trying to be national champions. However, I did take quite a lot of advantage from that because I was then at least one place further upfield.
One further up.
And I got a few medals, all in silver and bronze, I'm afraid. But yeah,
not bad.
They've changed that rule obviously now, so now they wear the sleeve and people can proudly be national champion.
Yeah, look out for those sleeves on the hills.
So that's it for our obscure rules, weird facts, and basically unwritten rules of World Cup mountain bike racing. Let us know if there's any we've missed, because there probably are down below. And are any of those unusual? I think they all make sense nowadays. I'm starting to agree with you, Si. What's wrong with me?
Neil's getting old. Yeah, get involved in the comments, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we'll see you in the next vid.